Can I just say, what a dreadful week for me to take the week off, honestly, for half term.
I knew you were on vacay, but I wanted to message you all week. I was like, how many times are you going to tell me I told you so?
I'm going to go further today. I want to put this out there to you straight away. We can talk about William last night at the BAFTAs. We can talk about Tom Tugendhat. It's an ongoing investigation for Andrew, and we have to bear that in mind. I notice or believe there is a change, Kins, amongst the British public. I am a self-styled monarchist. I make no apology. Everybody knows the old man worked for 40 years for the Queen Mother, but I sense a shift, and I fear that that shift will not be reversed unless one thing happens, which I didn't think I'd ever say, which is that the King might well have to step aside to allow William and Kate with a clean slate to start again, and I have the perfect out for him. He can use his illness, can't he?
I mean, there's no doubt that William and Catherine are untarnished, that they are sparkly, clean, new. There's hope associated with them, but if you are as much of a monarchist as I am, JK, you know that the crown is divinely ordained. Being king isn't about personal achievement. It's not a promotion you get based on good behavior. It's a sacred responsibility assigned by God, not by public opinion or by the choices of your little brother that no one can stand. Abdicating because of scandal would make it look like divine appointment depends on someone else's behavior, and it simply doesn't.
I completely get that, and I would have said that all my life, but the little brother, the problem is when you wake up every day to Andy still demanding that he's called a sir, orders to royal servants, he's got a chef and a valet. When you look, and you will know this from the United States of America, when you look at how this country is and the situation many people find themselves in, that unfairness tag that Charlie and I were talking about earlier just keeps reverberating. The thing for me is, I know that King Charles, through every sinew of his being, believes in the royal institution. If it was put to him that the only way... Because, let's be honest, Kins, I haven't spoken to you about this. Are you telling me he and his mother didn't know the 12 million was for what it was for? Because he's implicated. We can dress it up how you want. I'm a royalist, but the people in this country are going, come on, mate, you don't give your brother 12 million quid for nothing.
No, he did say through, I think, the Telegraph that he did not have anything to do with that payout. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did, and I'm not taking the opposite view deliberately. I see something that I've believed in crumbling in front of my eyes, if I'm honest.
Well, let me ask you this. When Edward was partying with Nazis, why didn't we demand King George VI step down? I mean, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, his actions are his own actions. They do not reflect on King Charles. His judgment, his leadership are his character. I think blaming the king for his brother's misconduct confuses individual responsibility with family ties. Stepping down over someone else's scandal.
But what about what Isabel Oakeshott wrote yesterday in the Mail on Sunday? And if you're tuning in, we're not arguing, we're having a debate because it's really important. Isabel wrote that a whistleblower, and it's all over the papers here today, there was an email in 2019 that the royal family, King Charles and the Queen, were made fully aware of the reservations about him in terms of the trade envoy, giving away stuff, taking advantage of his behaviour, and it was swept under the carpet. So whilst I agree with you about the crown is ordained and another man's mistakes are not yours, the question here now is, what can he do to convince his subjects that he did enough? That's where we're at.
Well, when I initially saw that story, I was reminded that it happened in 2019, and here we are in 2026, and the king still does not have a cellular telephone. So you're telling me that we can guarantee with every fiber of our beings that someone sent an email to King Charles's attorney, and we know that Prince Charles at the time witnessed that email, digested that email. This is a man that still doesn't even have a flip phone. His own son complains about not being able to get a hold of him, and we're expected to believe that this one email was on his radar. I need to hear it from him, although he's not in a position because of the investigation to speak.
Well, now that's very interesting because that's sort of where I'm at, and we've come full circle. I want to hear from him. We all remember what happened with the Queen when Diana sadly died and she stayed in Balmoral to be with the boys, and that was perceived as wrong. Her subjects wanted to hear from her, and when she eventually came down to London and spoke, the whole thing changed. I understand as well as you do that it's a police investigation, but I'm just telling you what the people in this country are feeling, and they somehow want more from their king. Maybe it's not abdication. Maybe it is addressing the nation. I don't know. Maybe he's in a terrible position. But I go back to 2019, whether he got that email or not, right? He apparently in 2003 warned the then Prime Minister Gordon Brown that it would not be a good idea for his brother to be a trade envoy. It will end in tears. And do you know who the business secretary was who championed it? This is brilliant, isn't
Peter
it?
Mandelson,
Peter
our buddy,
bloody Mandelson, yeah.
Mr. Short Shorts, yeah, Mr. Tidy Whities himself. But to be honest, the king cannot, I mean, he's gone completely no contact with Andrew because, as you know, here in the States, you lived here for a while, it's the people verse when somebody is prosecuted. Over where you are, it's the king versus the defendant. Prosecutions are brought in the name of the crown, not an individual victim or the police. So as monarch, Charles cannot testify or be a witness in his own courts. You know, he's worried about what he says publicly because a prosecution could collapse based on that. So he's limited in how he's able to react.
Has anybody thought about the other thing? If you look back of Burrell, the self-styled, you know, Diana's favourite person who was accused and went to court for taking artefacts from memorabilia from her house after her death, and all he had to do in court was stand up and say, I told the Queen can't be called. Has anybody in the legal profession worked out that presumably there's a fear that Andrew, if this goes to court and it's an ongoing process, could he not just say, I told my brother at some point, and then that case would be in trouble, right?
It would, yeah. Let's hope that Andrew's defense team hasn't had that conversation yet, and that they don't watch Jeremy Kyle at the crack of dawn, because you just gave him a very good strategy. But yeah, I think that that's a serious concern. It's why the king has refused to talk to Harry throughout all of his court cases, because it could jeopardize the case.
It's amazing. On a serious note, bless you, I can tell how hard you've been working the voices, but I mean, you've been on it the whole time, haven't you? And it's just great to be back in the hot seat and talking to you. Where do you think it ends, Kins? Genuinely.
Well, I do think that Parliament might go as far as removing Andrew from the line of succession. It has to pass a new act of Parliament. It has to be approved across the Commonwealth realms, which I do think would be drama and time consuming, but then it can be signed into law. There's no shortcut, no royal decree, and no internal palace mechanism that could do this. This has to be the government. Andrew was stripped of HRH and his royal duties by the royal family. Titles can be altered by the king and Parliament, but succession rights require legislation. And I do think that it's what the UK wants to see. I think it would be a level of accountability that they would appreciate. And I think it would reflect well on the government as well as the monarchy, even though they don't necessarily have a say.
In the next 5 years, does King Charles, will he still be the king?
Oh my gosh. Well, let me get out my crystal ball, Jeremy Kyle. I think that you are right. If the king were to ever abdicate, he would give this some space, some distance, because he doesn't want to be stained with the Epstein scandal. Yeah. And if he stepped down, he would say it was regarding his health. He doesn't want his legacy to be attached to something so vile.
Last week on holiday, when all this Andrew thing, right, came out, I thought of two words: Andrew Lownie. Morning, Andrew.
Good morning. Very nice to be back with you again.
Lovely to have you back. I have to say, and I want to start, when you wrote entitled, when you were making all these accusations about the Duke of York, the House of York, you told me 2 weeks ago I was threatened, I was abused, and I was laughed at. It would be fair to say, my friend, almost everything you've said has come to pass, hasn't it?
Yes, it's very gratifying to find that my sources were accurate. I mean, I knew they were. I did feel sometimes I was a bit of a lone voice, but it's very nice. A lot of people who were ostracizing me are now warming me, grabbing me by the hand. So that's great. And we've also got, I think, a bit more of a campaign for royal transparency now. Again, I felt I was a lone voice, but people now realize this is the only way they can survive.
Do you feel vindicated, Andrew?
Yeah, well, yes, I feel I loosened the earth a bit. I mean, I feel also we're getting justice for the victims, and I think we're holding to account some of the men who were responsible for these awful crimes.
I was watching it all sort of unfold, and we talked about, how we both felt that he would be arrested. It's an ongoing case, so we have to be very careful. Tom Tugendhat, who was just on, was talking about how he believes there might well be a reason or a decision to look at a treason probe for both Prince Andrew, as was Prince Andrew, and Mandelson. What are your thoughts on that?
I think he's absolutely right. I mean, I've always said this is a national security scandal. Tim Shipman touched on this in his Spectator diary last week, using his contacts in Whitehall, the worry that Andrew's given away defence secrets. I've brandished an intelligence report on interviews that I got from American intelligence, only dated this year, showing the links with Russian intelligence. So yes, this is going a lot way to go, and I think the charges against Andrew will be much more serious than people realise.
Something that struck me over the weekend as a fervent royalist, but like you, desperate for transparency, was something that I wanted to put to you. I think that I read Dan Hodges in the Mail on Sunday, and he talked about how the British feeling amongst normal people seems to have shifted. We know all about the arguments in the past for a monarchy and a republic. I genuinely think it's so bad that the king might have to stand aside, and I genuinely have a way out for him, which is to say that his medical situation is the reason that he's doing that. We will all know it's for the good of the royal family, and they start with a clean slate with William and Kate. What do you make of that, pal?
Yes, I mean, a number of people have suggested that. I've suggested that myself. I think it may be the only way to clean up the stables and start afresh. I think the king is compromised by his association with Andrew. I think there has been a cover-up. I think he knows a lot more than he's saying. And nothing was done when it could have been done. We've had emails, for example, that have been leaked that show that he was warned about Andrew's association with people like David Rowlands. So I think in order to lance the boil, there may have to be some dramatic gesture, or else the whole thing will just carry on. So, yeah, I think we are moving towards that sort of position.
It's interesting. The guy brings me in the morning, said, I agree with that, but I can't see, Kinsey talked about it, birthright, he's waited all those years. Would not, in your mind, the importance of sustaining the future of the British monarchy be more important to Charles than hanging on for a few years?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have gotten to that last chance saloon. I mean, in some ways, his legacy will be defined by the way he deals with this. And maybe, the best thing he can do is to fall on his sword to ensure that the continuation of the monarchy, because I agree. I think there would be huge public anger if it's found that he was involved in, for example, negotiations, the paying of the settlement. He was warned, along with the Queen, about Andrew and did nothing. And is still sort of in a position of some authority.
If we have transparency, if that happened, if this legal case ends with imprisonment or not, we have to be careful. Do you think, Andrew, that the monarchy can survive in the hands of William and Kate?
Yes, I think he's very popular. I think he has ideas about how to modernise the monarchy. I think it would be a great success. I mean, it is a reset rather than limping on with the old regime. So I think that could be a very neat solution. I feel sorry for Charles because he's waited all his life for this job, and William clearly would prefer to delay him taking the throne. But in order to preserve the monarchy, I think this may be the only solution.
What do you think William's telling his dad behind the scenes?
Well, I think he's saying, why didn't you deal with this earlier? I've actually got a piece in the Mail today where I give a whole series of moments over the last 15 years when something could have been done. I'm amazed nothing was done. And I'm afraid they brought this crisis on themselves by doing too little too late. And now they're in this terrible dilemma.
I read also some of the stuff, and seriously, some of the stuff you've done is absolutely brilliant. Andrew sort of out there. A couple of people say it seems to all be on him, but that's not going to go away. What about Fergie? Reports over the weekend that she might be in the UAE. She might have booked into the world's most expensive wellness clinic. Surely she needs to be questioned as well, doesn't she? And her daughters.
Yes, I mean, I think there are a whole series of people who need to be questioned. I mean, I think also the former heads of UKTI, former ambassadors, I mean, all the former members of staff. There are a whole series of people that enabled and protected Andrew. These were people who refused to talk to me. They said, I'm not interested. And I just hope they might now be interested in either talking to the police or talking to a parliamentary committee. I understand Liam Byrne's committee will be meeting on Tuesday to discuss a fuller investigation into Andrew's time as a trade envoy, and I welcome that. We need to get those files of his time as a trade envoy, 2001 to 11, released. I spent 5 years being basically denied access to these files, which I think would show who were on these trips and what business was done, and whether it was in the interests of the British taxpayer or actually just lining Andrew's pocket.
I want to go back to how I started, actually, because you did do this as this sort of lone wolf. Now everybody wants a piece of Andrew Lownie, but whether you feel vindicated or not, tell me to mind my own business. How did you suss this out? What were the signs that made you as a journalist start digging all those years ago?
Well, I think it goes back to school and seeing bullies get away with behavior, elites basically operating in their own self-interest. And I've always, even as my career in publishing, always been for the underdog, to try and give a voice for those who don't always have a voice. It's, presumably why you're in journalism too, the feeling that we can improve society without seeming too sanctimonious through words and sort of campaigning.
It's really interesting when I look at what you did at the start and where you are now. Every single person, it seems, will come out and say, God, he's an entitled, rude, arrogant, just horrible. Rumour last week, I don't know if you read this, that even as he was being not forcibly removed, but taken out of Royal Lodge at midnight, he was going, well, I'm the Queen's second son. And he's still, I mean, you've seen the Sun today, mate. He still has... You try saying this to Alarm Clock Britain. Sorry you've had a really, really bad day, and you're working really hard. Andy, call me sir. He's struggling, though, Andrew. He's only got a chef and a valet now. Jesus Christ. It just doesn't work, does it?
It is extraordinary. I mean, I certainly talked to members of staff recently, and I was amazed to hear that there was no contrition. It was all about, as you say, him. And I've heard that's the problem. I mean, he can't see anything outside his own self-interest.
Just to finish, if anything, do you believe going forward, whether Andrew, whatever happens with the court case, whether there is an abdication and a transition, do you believe the monarchy will forevermore have to be more transparent about relationships, business deals and everything to Parliament and to its people in future?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's very interesting that, just as you say, the number of commentators who are saying this, I mean, even people like David Dimbleby, and, it is the only way forward, and it's long overdue. I mean, things like parliamentary scrutiny and removal of all the exemptions they have, but they need to be more open in terms of their finances, their records, their communication with the press, etc. We need to get rid of, I think, for example, the Royal Rota, the lobby system, which protects journalists, gives them leaks in return for not asking too many tough questions. They are part of a modern democratic society and they have to answer to the people.
I spoke to a Royal Protection Officer,
Di Davies,
this weekend. He had some really interesting things to say because the protection officers are being investigated.
Yep.
I want to know who covered this up, who was involved. Will the King be implicated in this? I know you were talking to Kinsey about it earlier.
I think he has to be. I think he's going to have to abdicate to save the monarchy.
Well, Di spoke about a conspiracy of silence. Let's hear from him about what that was.
Okay.
People that fundamentally we pay for, eventually, one shape or another, what's the point of them if they don't brief the King and those at senior level? So there are huge questions to ask for them going back 20 plus years, more 25 years.
Completely. And just to finish off with, because my goodness, I mean, this is really, really interesting to hear almost firm evidence that there has been some sort of cover up here. Of course, this is all alleged at this point.
Well,
but
it is alleged. And I'm just saying it to you as somebody, hopefully, who has a degree of common sense, but a degree of knowledge as an investigator. That's all I'm saying. It shouldn't be for me to call these things out. It should have been called out by people far more senior than I and knowledgeable. But unfortunately, at my age, if I don't speak out now because there's been so much silence, I feel yet again the victims will be let out.
Now we're talking about victims. They're going to go. My old man worked for the Queen Mother for 41 years, and he signed the Official Secrets Act, and he died, and he still would have said absolutely nothing. There is pressure because of the appalling atrocities that seem to have happened, and we have to be careful because it's an ongoing case of people around Andrew, including the protection officers, being vetted. What is Di Davies saying? That seemed to cut in the middle. What is he saying? They should be, or they should come forward? It's not their responsibility. What's he saying?
He's saying a lot of people knew a lot of things and let it go and swept
because
it
they were
under the
terrified
carpet.
of losing their job, presumably.
I agree. I've got empathy for the royal protection officers, and I've got empathy for those who were underneath Andrew. We know that he was an entitled person who absolutely thought had complete authority over anyone who worked for him, and he was very pompous in that way. But unfortunately, the king, other senior members of the royal family, and the Queen at the time would have been briefed in some capacity, allegedly, about Andrew's behaviour.
Did you see Isabel's piece in the Sunday Mail yesterday, which says that in 2019 there was an email sent which absolutely highlighted what the hell was going on? And in fact, as far back as I think 2007, Charles was allegedly saying to anybody that would listen, you can't have him as trade envoy, it'll end in tears. And it was Mandelson who got him the job. And then you just think, the problem is, right, Samara, you're Australian, I am the biggest royalist, but even just go out there and you can sense that people are going, no, we need more. And if, I said it earlier, I'll say it again, if the only way to save the monarchy is for Charles to fall on his sword, then so be it. Sorry.
I'm a royalist, but our national security was put at risk.
Yep.
I mean, there are instances that have come out in papers like The Sun where he had code names, Mrs. Windsor, for women that he wanted to, that he let in, basically, to various palaces without any security checks. These are Romanian nationals, Russian nationals that did not have background checks, could have been, working potentially for, their respective countries, and we have no idea. And then we know in the emails that there was information led to China, which is a hostile state, Singapore, and Vietnam. So he's got a lot to answer for, and he was scurrying around doing all this, filling his own pockets up while pretending to be special trade envoy, and seemingly, allegedly, the Crown kind of knew. And that's the problem. So I wish, in a way, that we could just skip forward to William and Catherine and just have a clean slate, because the king is tarnished. He can't come back from this.
Mate, you're arguing with the wrong person. I completely agree. The problem the problem Charles has got, which nobody will agree with, including you, is I suspect that if he was finally dragged down, he might squeal.
Yeah.
And if he squeals, one wonders what he's got on the rest of them. Because one thing I know from the old man is none of them are squeaky clean. Thank God she's dead. The other thing I want to say to you is, which I said this morning, and Kinsey's mouth dropped open. Do you remember when Paul Burrell, yes. Diane's... Do you know why his case collapsed?
Because the Queen actually said
all he said was, I told the Queen I was taking her artefacts.
Yep.
They then can't call the Queen because it's her court. So I'm not helping Andrew here because I'm not a lawyer. But all he's got to do is stand up in court and say, I told my brother.
We spoke about this in the longer form interview, which you can find on YouTube, and that might well happen because, as you said, it might exactly be that same situation where Paul Burrell used the Queen in order to admonish himself of guilt in some sort of way. So I think it's very interesting because we're quickly finding that even though we think the royal family is this, lovely, loving family, they are well and truly above the law, seemingly, and it's not fun in a time when we've got massive austerity in this country.
Well, that was the story today in the Sun. They said,
yes.
I've only got a chef and a valet, and you must call me sir. Do one.
Yeah, exactly.
Do one, man.
I just think that the royal family is aging out. They cannot stay silent on this. It's not keep calm and carry on anymore.
No.
It's speak up and hold people to account. And I just hope that the king gets that message. But unfortunately, it seems like they live in another decade. I mean, yes, we saw.
But he can't win, can he? He can't win. I'm not sticking up for him. He can't win.
No,
I believe this has been covered up for years, and the problem now is that legally he's got his hands tied because it's his court. I didn't hear my brother in that statement. He's obviously... All I know about Charles is he believes in the monarchy, and it might well be that to save the monarchy, because William and Kate are not tarnished, that's it. William, what's he saying to his father behind the scenes?
Oh, William is absolutely enraged. I mean, how can we forget that recent royal funeral where Andrew tried to bound up to William and talk to him, and William just didn't want to have a bar of it. William has been sounding the alarm behind the scenes for a long time, reports state, and I think that he's just basically being exonerated at this point and being proven right. So he's the future.
Play this if I can very, very quickly. I hope you don't mind. This is a female police officer in Whitechapel. How ironic is this? Defending a Christian preacher's right to be there from a bunch of Muslim men who say, no, he should go. This is a Muslim area. Push the button, Big M.
I hear what you're saying. In this country, we have freedom of speech, the same way you guys have your freedom of speech. Now, you guys don't need to see eye to eye, and you don't need to agree, and you're all more than welcome to stand here and have conversations with them, but they're not being aggressive. They're not.
Someone else come here, they just, you never know, he might get smashed up.
That's their risk. That's their risk.
I told the police, because on the way, I heard them say an offensive word about the religion. I ignored it, I came back. On the way, he's talking about a prophet, then he's like a donkey.
So he clarified to your friends what it says.
Yeah, but it's like, no. You know, if I could misunderstand the word, but when hundreds of people are stopping, because what he's saying, there must be something wrong.
It's contentious though.
Yeah.
It's a contentious area.
So why is he doing that? Yeah.
He has the right to do it.
What's the moral of the story? Is he allowed to do whatever he's doing?
Yes.
One thing's for sure, Brendan, she'll be behind a desk doing parking fines in a minute. We salute her, don't we?
Absolutely. Bravo to that young police officer. I mean, just to see that, you know, this lone woman holding the line for British freedom against a mob of men. Really extraordinary scenes. And the way in which those men were basically asking her to behave as the religious police, to enforce their blasphemy law. And she just refused. She said, listen, we've got freedom of speech. This guy is allowed to preach from the Bible. He's allowed to criticize Islam. The point we need to make to mobs of men like this is Britain. This is not Iran. This is not an Islamic country. We don't have Sharia law. You can't enforce your religious sensitivities onto the rest of us. Our freedom of speech trumps your religious concerns every single time.
But you see, can I jump in? That thing that you just said, this is because you're my mate. This is the bit I don't get. Your religious concerns, but it works both ways. It's like I say to my daughter at university in her 20s, I'm delighted you've got an opinion, but you are not going to tell me that everything I believe in that your grandparents taught me, right, is misogynistic, homophobic, sexist, racist and far right. I am entitled in a free speech world to have as much of an opinion as you are, and that's the bit I don't get. That's where this country's wrong. Totally wrong.
Absolutely. It's the arrogance of the mob who presume, and the way in which they say this is a Muslim area, the suggestion being that Muslim law or Muslim feelings should rule in that area. I'm sorry, that is not how it works. I know that's probably how it works in certain parts of the country, but it shouldn't. It should never work like that. It doesn't matter what part of the United Kingdom you are in. The rules of the United Kingdom still pertain. We don't have blasphemy laws. We shouldn't punish people for criticizing the Quran or criticizing Muhammad. This is a free country, and I was so happy to see that police officer holding the line for freedom for once.
Interesting. This morning at 11 o'clock, Reform will hold a big press conference in Dover with Zia Yusuf, the party's newly appointed Shadow Home Secretary, where he will pledge a visa ban on Pakistani and 5 other Muslim countries with high populations. And before people jump up and down, these countries are refusing to send or receive illegal migrants back. Zia Yusuf will say that Reform government would deport 300,000 a year. Now, certain parts of the media are already up in arms. Brendan saying it'll be ICE-style removal. This is not how we do things. But am I not fair to say that millions of people in this country no longer see this as fair? They've lost trust in a country and a government that seems to put anybody who's not here from birth at the back of the bloody queue and everybody else is at the front. I mean, I think that's fair. I don't know. What do you make of it?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, sometimes I feel like I'm going mad, Jeremy, and I know you have the same feeling, because it has been a fact of life in nation states for as long as they have existed that people are allowed to visit, people are allowed to work, and then they go home. Yeah. This is such an established feature of a modern-day nation state. We've all done, every country right now, as we speak, there is a country on earth that is planning the removal of hundreds or thousands of people who were there to work and now they've got to go home. This is normal stuff. And I'm really sick and tired of feeling dangerous and edgy and a bit radical for saying these things. This is normal behavior. Just because the media class think it's racism or fascism to kick people out of the country, that doesn't mean they're right. In fact, they're flat out wrong. And I think Reform is absolutely correct to threaten to punish countries that refuse to take their illegal immigrants back. These people are, say, Pakistan. These are Pakistan's problem. They're not our problem. And if Pakistan refuses to take these illegals back, we should punish it by cancelling visas.
I mean, to me, it's two things: that and make it less attractive to come here and impossible to get in. And that involves the Navy in the sea, and it involves a processing centre somewhere. I'd like it on a boat and then taken to a... I don't see, but you get them, Brendan, and they get so up in their... But if you stood in front of one of those people and you said, you know, we're paying £10 billion a year in debt on interest on money we haven't got. You know, don't you, that you in wherever you live, if I put a migrant hotel next to you and your teenage daughter was chased or attacked, would you have a different opinion? They won't answer that, mate. They can't answer that. That's not fair. We seem to favour this human rights rubbish about everybody else other than the British people, and I will forever sit here and say that.
You know, I'll tell you why they don't care, because that section of society rarely bears the brunt of this problem. The people who bear the brunt of this problem, particularly illegal immigration, are working class communities, and in particular working class women and working class girls, who suddenly wake up one morning and there are 700 men from a country they don't know, far away, from a regressive misogynistic culture, living at the end of their street. And that makes them feel scared. That makes them feel like their community has just been turned upside down by the arrogant government who's imported these people and put them in the local hotel. The people who bear the brunt of this are poorer people and working class people. And therefore, the human rights industry, who are all very wealthy from their activism and live in nice houses in leafy parts of London, they don't even have to think about these problems. So there's a real arrogance to this as well. And the truth of the matter is that people who came here illegally, you're absolutely right, it should be made harder to get here, and it should be made far less attractive to be here. No welfare payments, no hotel accommodation, no house given to you for free. We need to get really serious about this problem now.
Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, page 2 of The Sun today, used taxpayers' money for massages whilst working as the UK's trade envoy, ex-civil servants thingy. Now, I'm sure many people, being very honest, have put certain things down on expenses. Have you ever put anything outrageous on expenses?
No, I am a Southern Baptist. That getting caught doing anything wrong terrifies me.
Right. OK, well, that's very honest. I've never, ever put a massage on expenses. Other things, maybe. But he's got some front, hasn't he, mate? Really? And this is just another headline, another day. And I was talking to Matt Wilkinson, the Sun's royal editor, yesterday, and this story's going nowhere, is it?
I mean, I just think that Andrew heard public service and thought it meant the public service is him. Probably that went through his mind more than one time. He's becoming a meme. We saw it in the Louvre in the last, 24 hours.
You've got to tell this story, because this is brilliant. This is absolutely... Have we got a clip of the Louvre? Was it a couple of... what happened? 2 people put his picture up or something?
Yeah, they framed his picture and then put a little plaque explaining that, he was a menace to society, basically, in the Louvre. And so if you popped by to see Mona Lisa, you got like a little extra bang for your buck. I'm sure. I
don't think when we're talking about massages, you should be using those 2 phrases.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I did think it was interesting that some civil servants questioned the charges, but they were approved by senior staff. Somewhere there's an expense form that just says like purpose of visit, extremely hands-on negotiations, I guess. But he's just become a joke. I mean, we shouldn't be laughing about this. This is horrible. He's a horrible person. And yes, this is the worst crisis the monarchy has seen in my lifetime. But he's just become such a joke of a human being.
I never thought I would ever, on this station or this show, tell you anything that my old man told me, but the story about the expenses overnight, and Christians look at me with those eyes, I'm going to tell the story because my father is no longer here. He used to sign off all the expenses for the Queen Mother's household, and this will end up in the papers. This will actually end up in the papers. This is a fact. He's no longer with us. And when the marriage between Charles and Diana was floundering, and I'll go as far as I can, he always used to go and see Granny on a Sunday in his car. OK, that was the Queen Mother. Mm-hmm. He didn't go and play polo. He used to go to Clarence House to see Granny all Sunday. I don't know if anybody else was at Granny's house, but this is an absolute shoofer, because I remember him telling me that one of the footmen would have to go and fill up the car, and it would be 70 quid, and he'd have to sign it off on a Monday morning. If your wife's in Highgrove, why have you gone to London to have tea with Granny every Sunday? Just saying.
That's a very good question, but I didn't think Granny liked Camilla.
What's Camilla got to do with this?
Oh, I thought that she was sneaking. Oh, are you saying Granny put gas in his car?
I'm going to plead the fifth. You've just swallowed the bait, but you might be dead. I mean, I'm just saying. True. That's a true story. And whether Camilla was there or not, who are we to know, Kins? But I have to say, it does, and the reason I told the story, it does again pinpoint how much has gone on and how much we don't know. And what I would say, and we were talking about this yesterday, whether or not the monarchy survives, changes, the demand for transparency is going to get stronger and stronger, isn't it?
It is, but I would also stress that we need to manage our expectations, because if this is an ongoing investigation, the king could jeopardize any sort of prosecution by saying too much publicly.
But as we said yesterday, you know, any lawyer with an ounce of credibility would tell Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor that the way to get out of this trial, if there is to be one, we have to assume that he's innocent until anything is given. And that is an important thing to say repeatedly. As Paul Burrell did, as I told you yesterday, he simply said, well, I told the Queen I was taking the artefacts and the Diana, and the Queen, it's her court, she can't turn up. You could be saying exactly the same to Andrew, but for me it goes further. Did you see overnight that Australia and New Zealand backed the call to remove him from the line of succession? I don't know why that hasn't been done by the King instantly. That, to me, is... We're talking about a bloke who's been removed from public life. He's had all of his titles removed, whose sordid little dirty lifestyle is being rinsed across the world, and he's still 8th in line to the throne. Of course, he's never going to accede to the throne. Let's get him out. I don't know why the King hasn't done that straight away. Genuine comment there.
Well, it would require, primary legislation passed by Parliament. So Parliament would need to pass a new act, and then the bill must pass both houses. And then, the Commonwealth realms, so you've mentioned 2 of them, but there are like over 50, then they all have to agree on the same thing as well. So technically it's complicated, but I do believe it could happen. And I think everyone would commit to it, but it has to pass a new act of Parliament. It has to be approved by the Commonwealth realms, across the Commonwealth realms.
But you see, this is where I don't understand our Prime Minister, and you're not political, but here's the thing. They passed a bill within 5 minutes about British Steel, right? If I was not trying to curry favour, but if I was trying to do right by my people, I passed that.
Well, if I was trying to distance myself from Peter Mandelson and his tidy-whities, yeah, I would jump in there.
Can you ever get that view of his tidy-whities out of your head? Is it something that you think about the whole time?
Yeah, when I close my eyes, it's like Satan tattooed it in my eyelids. Whenever I close my eyes, it's just Peter Mandelson in his little panties, and I reject that image. I refuse it. I don't want it anymore.
I've never worn tighty-whities. I just want you to know that if you ever have a moment where you close your eyes and think, I'm joking. We've got a voice note for you. Karen, good morning.
Hi, Jeremy. I think we need to understand what's really going on here. I think there is a coup d'etat to actually depose the king going on here. This Epstein files thing goes very, very deep indeed. Now, if we get rid of the monarchy, if the monarchy gets deposed,
yes, Kins, I don't think there's a coup d'etat. I disagree completely. I think we're talking about the British people and the British press, well, most of the British press, holding to task an organisation that still has a lot of love, but is going to find itself in the spotlight increasingly because of its behaviour.
Yeah, I mean, I would use Trump as an example of why the monarchy is so incredibly important, because it's just watching this man melt over King Charles and Prince William, knowing that he has such a hostile relationship truly with Keir Starmer. I think it's the perfect example of that soft diplomacy and why the British royal family needs to continue to exist, because Trump goes over there, gets his butt kissed by the monarchy, and now sends millions of dollars worth of money and tech opportunities to the UK. So yes, there's an argument for the amount of tourism the British royal family brings in. I am living proof of that. But I also think it's so much deeper, and that they stay above the political line. I think that that's important. I mean, do you want to have a country as polarizing as my country is politically? It's a scary, dangerous place. You're afraid to tell people who you voted for because you'll lose friends, you'll lose relatives, you'll lose job opportunities. And I think that what is so important about the British royal family is you have this patriotic symbol that everyone can rally around, no matter who you voted for.
4 years ago today that Russia invaded Ukraine. I'm delighted to welcome a lady I haven't spoken to for ages, a really strong and amazing woman. Keir Ruddock is a Ukrainian MP. She's live in Kyiv. Keir, welcome. How are you?
Hi, Jeremy. Thank you so much for having me. You know, today we had electricity for 6 hours straight, so it feels like a super luxury. And we just hope that because we survived till the end of winter, there is something good coming right up. It's very hard to stay strong. People are really exhausted. I cannot begin to tell you how hard it is when you do not have heating and electricity and it's minus 25 outside. But look, at the beginning of full-scale invasion, people didn't give up. And right now, we are still here. Nobody gave us more than a couple of days.
But that's the point I wanted to make. I mean, sometimes we can sit here and talk about some of the heinous things that have gone on here. For the Ukrainian people, as you said, 4 years ago, and I remember talking to you regularly, nobody gave you any hope at all. You've survived this for 4 years, and sometimes context is really important. We're just celebrating having 6 years, you know, six hours of electricity, which is extraordinary. Let's just talk about the resolve of the Ukrainian people. It doesn't show any sign of wavering. I'm sure there have been hard times, and I think that that would have surprised the Russians and Putin more than anything. Would I be correct?
Absolutely. Putin's plan for this winter was to freeze us to submission, to wind us down with the darkness. And I can tell you this winter I spent with different people helping out the communities that were targeted the most. And it was very hard. I have seen so many tears. I have seen so many frustration and pain. However, I didn't hear one thing, something like, let's capitulate or let's do whatever it takes to get it over with. No, people understand who the enemy is. And we know for a fact that this thing that got us through the 4 years, through this winter, will hopefully get us forward. Like ability to stand together, to support each other, to believe in each other, to support our armed forces, because the truth is we wouldn't be here if it was not for them.
What about Zelensky? One of the things that I'm interested in is the country still behind him? There was talk, I think, a few months ago of murmurings of discontent, but is he as rock solid as he was before?
He is. Well, his support has been going up and down, but we cannot have elections during the martial law, and Ukraine never asked for elections during the martial law, so these ideas were coming from Russia and from the United States. So because we cannot have elections, there is no point of really trying to take President Zelensky down, right? Because he is standing for the country, he is doing his part, and we stand behind him. We will criticize him when the time comes. We criticize him for corruption cases, for sure. However, right now we still have to work as a team because it's for the team to survive.
It's really interesting as well. I remember talking to you before about, and you actually, somebody said, oh, how could you ask her that? And you were brilliant. War fatigue doesn't mean anything to the Ukrainian people who are facing, if you look at the stuff on screen, I'll explain for you if you're on the radio, people's houses being burnt, bombed, no electricity, darkness, freezing, cold, dreadful. We shouldn't moan about anything. But is it a frustration? Is it a worry that perhaps the focus on this has diminished slightly across the world?
Of course, and people cannot be emotional about things for a long time, and we are at this point of a war where there will be no surprises. There will be no new information that we can provide to you. There will be no like some specifically devastating children's hospitals bombarded, because Russia already has done that, and maternity wards, and torturing people, and killing civilians. They're committing all kinds of the war crimes. It is all already at the table. So right now, what we need is the strategy of the West to shift from like going step by step and slice by slice, weakening Russia and strengthening Ukraine, to really making the hard decisions, going ahead with the weapons that were not provided beforehand, imposing sanctions that were being held behind, moving forward with the things that were unspeakable a year ago, 2 years ago, and they need to become reality right now. Again, like coming back 4 years ago, we were sent helmets and said like to hold on here. And right now we are defending ourselves with lots of Western weapons, because we have proven our ability to defend ourselves skillfully and making a very good use of the support that is coming here. I
just want to ask you on a sort of personal level, what's it like living in a country that must be in a permanent state of mourning for lives lost and the destruction of almost everything that you've ever believed in by the Russians? I mean, do you personally ever shed a tear for what's happened to the country that you previously lived in?
I can tell you honestly, I cry a lot. But I can also tell you that this amount of devastation and pain tells you to love a lot and not to put anything to tomorrow, because tomorrow is absolutely not given. So if you want to say that you love someone, you do it today. If you want to give somebody a cheer up or some support, you do it today. If you want to help someone or achieve someone, you do it today. And it actually changed all of us, because we are living in this like very short period of time. And it's also very painful to know that there is no coming back to the past, and that like the world before 2022 has collapsed. But I am also hopeful that we will be able to build something new with everyone's support, where Ukraine will be able to get and get the dreams that we always had, like becoming a member of European Union, getting in a strong military alliance, having our kids study abroad and have like this fantastic future. I'm trying to concentrate on the good things, because there's like so much pain and devastation every single day around us.
Have you lost friends and family, or people that you knew in this war?
Jeremy, I have been to so many funerals, I cannot begin to tell you. And every time we are having a mourning minute at 9 a.m. every day, sometimes I get to the end of this minute and I don't even list all the people that I'm mourning. And this is so frustrating and painful. And the issue is that it will never reverse, never go back. And but I can tell you, the more in my prayers are people who are currently fighting, and I'm just really, really doing everything I can so they will not be in this mourning list.
I wanted to ask you those questions because we have spoken a lot and will continue to speak. I think it's really important that the British people and the world in general keeps hearing this story. And for the detractors, I mean, people you said, you talk about it the whole time, you're warmongering. No, I'm not. This is actually our war, because if this goes beyond Ukraine, Europe's in trouble.
A lot of stories circulating over here in the United States about the royals. I apologize for texting you at 3 o'clock in the morning, but I was excited.
You did text me, you were excited, but it wasn't about... Anyway, so over here, Andrew, I mean, front page of The Sun today, which is extraordinary. I mean, get off your high horse. This man has been banished not only to Sandringham, but has now been told that he can't go riding or anything. And politically, Kinsey, you'd know this, there's this whole thing about releasing the files. His house was searched for the 4th day yesterday. That's done. But our Prime Minister is refusing to release all the files, and people are getting angrier by the minute.
I mean, the problem for Keir Starmer is that refusing to release the full files on Andrew risks creating exactly the kind of suspicion the government says it wants to shut down. I mean, years of scandal and drip-fed revelations. The public, they're sick of it. They're not in the mood for partial answers or carefully worded summaries anymore. People want the full picture because at this point, holding documents back, it doesn't calm the story. It keeps it alive. And the longer those papers stay locked away, the more people assume there must be something in them worth hiding.
I'm so with you. And in fact, I mean, a couple of weeks ago when this whole files thing was talked about and he stood up and he said, oh, you know, we're going to decide which ones, even his own MPs went, we're beyond the pale. We'll talk about America in a minute, but what's happening here, Kins, undoubtedly, is the British people are going, we don't have much trust in almost any part of the establishment right now, whether it's the government or the royal family or our public institutions, and they will demand transparency, including the latest thing, of course, is the removal of Andrew from the line of succession. Have a listen to this. This is Keir Starmer yesterday on that subject.
Well, it's important that we let the police investigation run its course, but I can tell you the government is looking at options in relation to succession. I think it's important that we do that with all options on the table.
Doesn't make any sense to me, Kins. The guy's got no titles, he's got no life, he's not allowed to be seen. I just do it overnight. I don't understand. I mean, somebody said to me, he's still 8th in line to the throne. That's never going to happen. Get rid.
The second I read about the 26-year-old Russian girl in the DOJ dump, that's when I would have been like, we need to get this guy as, you know, I understand that they need to investigate him properly. I understand that Keir Starmer has to say things like that. But the reality is it's guilt by association in the court of public opinion. This guy is a creep. And no one wants to even imagine the nightmare of him representing your country in any way, shape, or form going forward.
Did you see that? You know the whole trade envoy job. I might have said this to you yesterday. It's my age, but the whole trade envoy job that's resulted in people saying you've used it to help your friend Epstein and to basically furnish yourself. He was suggested by none other than Peter Mandelson. I mean, they're all up to it. Like this whole sort of crock of lying and whatever. I heard a story the other day. Maybe it was yesterday in the papers. Everybody's always talked about his arrogant attitude, Kins. Apparently, he would bellow at people when he was trying to get women into Buckingham Palace. There was a story overnight that one poor guy who was, you know, close protection security. This woman just turned up in a very small dress, saying, "I'm here to see Andrew." Truthfully, and the guy, well, you've got no security, and you got the phone. You send her up to my room. I mean, it is extraordinary, and does still further beg the questions we've said for days now. How much was known? That's the problem over here, mate. They think they knew a lot more than they're letting on.
Well, Keir Starmer could relieve some of that frustration and stress by releasing these documents, but the fact that he's saying he's going to hold on to them just upsets people even more.
Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, with everything that's gone on, we haven't had a chance to speak about them for ages. An announcement yesterday. Go on, try and sell it to me, Kins. This is brilliant. No.
Oh, I don't know if I could even try to sell it to you, but Prince Harry and Meghan have announced a surprise humanitarian trip to Jordan, where they're going to spend 2 days meeting with aid groups and health workers focused on communities affected by war and displacement. The visit is being coordinated alongside the World Health Organization with the goal, critics would say, of drumming up whatever positive headlines the Sussexes still can. A source close to the Sussexes told People magazine, their favorite outlet here in the United States, the couple are pro-family and pro-children, and their philanthropic work reflects this value.
Pro-family? Pro-family?
Describing Harry and Meghan as pro-family, that feels strangely ironic when they've actively destroyed at least true. Pro-family in theory, in practice, results may vary.
Just honestly, the only thing I could think about Harry and Meghan, I loathe it, is they must be delighted that they're not front and centre. And you sort of, I don't know. I mean, there was another story overnight going back to it was royals again. Sarah Ferguson was apparently trying to break into Hollywood weeks before Andrew's arrested for trafficking girls and allegedly selling secrets. What was she going to appear as in?
No, she was pitching her regal bodice ripper, her heart for a compass, as Bridgerton meets The Crown for a TV or film project. And sources say that she had the book rewritten, repitched, and was actively like really leaning on industry contacts. And this is all as the DOJ documents start to dump. And she's devastated because she thinks she is this close to getting this show made. I mean, in Hollywood, you can rewrite the script. Unfortunately for the Yorks, you cannot rewrite the headlines. What would we call it? 50 Shades of Fergie, maybe 50 Shades of Earl Grey, because in this version, the tea keeps spilling whether anyone ordered it or not.
This book, I mean, all she had to do was write about what Andrew got up to. This is the other thing that I keep wondering about. All these women that came to Buckingham Palace and came to Windsor. That was the ex-wife living down the corridor. She never heard, she never saw, she never questioned. She always publicly stuck up for him. Was she part of it? I mean, then I'll say things, I'll get into trouble. Maybe we're back to Kinsey, Kyle and Charlie. Maybe there were more than two. I've no idea.
Well, if those emails are anything like Ghislaine's, then perhaps, because Ghislaine talked about a couple of those scenarios in her
Go on, say
messages.
the word for me at 10 to 7 in the morning. It'll get me through the rest of the show. What words?
Threesome?
Brilliant. Not now. Bringing Ghislaine up. This is brilliant. I of course, a couple of years ago, interviewed her inside the penitentiary, which was an interview that was all she talked about was tofu, I remember. Anyway, apparently, according to a report overnight, a former inmate says she's a smelly old mare. Is that right?
That's right. The latest headlines about her stateside are not about super secret files or courtroom drama. It's about humble prison life. And according to her former inmate, it stinks. A woman that says she served time with Ghislaine at the federal prison in Tallahassee claims she had a reputation for showering only once or twice a week, even while exercising regularly. And she was pretty infamous for being smelly. And she apparently had very few friends because of said smell. They also said that no one liked her, but no one wanted to risk hurting her or going after her in jail because the repercussions would just not be worth the drama. But if Prince Andrew, ex-Prince Andrew, is watching us right now, the moral of the story is that you can go from Buckingham Palace to body odor faster than you can say Pizza Express. So hopefully he's listening. We're teaching him a lesson.
Prison Pong. Cam, what a great headline. Kins, it just continues to give. He's banned from horse riding. Fergie wanted to sell her sexy book to Hollywood before they were all in trouble. She's probably going to be arrested. And amongst all of it, in the midst of it all, Meghan Unsparkle and the dumb Prince Harry are off on a humanitarian visit to Jordan. Not that anybody gives a damn. The Andrew saga drags on. He apparently stuck in Sandringham, banned, according to the front of the Sun newspaper today, like you really give a toss. But anyway, banned from riding a horse. Doesn't want to be seen in public. They don't want him out and about. What becomes of him? Much of what's been said over the last few days is who's up to it, who's up to their necks in it. It could go, as Andrew Lownie said, as high as the King and William, certainly people who worked in the palace, and a lot of focus has been on the royal protection side of this. We'll say a very good morning to the former head of royal protection, a man I know very well, Di Davis. Good morning.
Good morning. Lovely to be back with you, sir.
Good. I love the red wall. It's class in a glass, Davis. You know that, don't you? Absolutely.
Well, my wife did that. I was in Australia, and when I came back, she painted it. So what can I say?
Well, I think well done. I mean, obviously bought her a bunch of flowers and taken a job away from you. The old man used to call my mother the War Office. And he'd go, I'm going off on a trip, and when I come back, the War Office will have changed the house. Di, is it unfair?
Marvellous.
Is it unfair the spotlights being pointed at former royal protection officers? Do you think it's fair or unfair, my friend?
No, sadly, I think it's reasonable, and that's the best word in the English language. If they went around the world with him for all those years, stayed in those 5 or 6 different premises from Paris to the Virgin Islands and so on, they must have seen something. So they are crucial. If you're going to have a proper police inquiry, and I've been calling for that for a number of years on your program and others, into the sexual allegations. But let's deal with the other bit. No, I think it's absolutely right. They were with him, close as anyone. But, you know, the big question that has to be asked, which I can't understand, why nobody didn't do due diligence before they went, particularly on that 9-day stay. Didn't the embassy warn anybody, or the High Commission?
Listen, I've got
Police,
so
the
much.
FBI?
I would love to be able to sit with my old man and have this discussion, because he would have so much to tell me about this. I mean, we all know that if you work for the royal family, he did it, I'm sure. Do protection officers have to sign the Official Secrets Act, or is it just a discretion? What is it?
No, I think they do, and they did. And particularly, I think, when we all joined, and I joined back in the late 60s, so I'm not quite sure if I signed it then, but clearly you are seeing a huge and are aware and listening. And that's the problem with Andrew. He would have been briefed at the highest level about arms sales, about all manner of things. Yep. And they arguably, in the front of the car, wherever they are, they would have been party to a great deal of this. Not saying they would be there when he was talking to Mandelson or all the rest, but you don't know. No. So it's eminently fair, at long last, that the Met actually investigate not only the police, but high officials in the palace. And if any royals knew of this, then unfortunately they have to be questioned too.
Well, Andrew Lownie said this morning he believes that this goes as high as the King, and that what will happen in this country is that the demand for transparency, be it through protection officers, be it through household staff, be it from the royals themselves, will only increase, Di. It's not going to go away, is it? And people will talk about Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and how his character was this, that and the other. But the fact of the matter is, I don't believe I'm going over the top when I say this. For the monarchy, something I fervently believe in, to survive, this needs to be stripped bare. Back to protection officers. Do they, I mean, I got some sort of idea from the government, do they ever leave his side? I mean, would they have Would they have gone to Epstein's New York mansion with him and stayed there, or left him there and gone to a hotel? What happened?
No, I think the records show that at least 2 of them stayed there. And I say again, they would have done a reconnaissance. They would have gone there. They should have checked out who Mandelson was. This is the one I can't understand, but it goes further. They would have gone to all these different residents. And I'm told, I haven't been there myself, you couldn't possibly not see the lewd pictures on the walls. Everywhere there were sexual objects in virtually every room, it is alleged. And I have to say, this is all alleged.
And this is on Epstein's Island, isn't it?
It's on Epstein's Islands, it's in Florida, it's in New Mexico. Any premises where he went, they would have gone and should have gone to the local police or the local FBI agents and liaised. So what we have to ask is, when that infamous visit, which is photographed in New York, didn't anybody from the embassy to the police to anybody else do due diligence? And was he warned, you are staying with a paedophile? That's what I can't understand. And whether they stood on the doors as semi-bouncers is, frankly, minutiae in the far worse scenario that we're talking about. So royalty protection, sadly, and I was very proud of the vast majority of my officers, some 400 plus in my time, they all did a good job. But clearly there are questions to ask. And as an investigator of half a century now, I would be asking them. I wouldn't send them letters. I would say, I want a word with you at the Nick, please.
It's really difficult, though, isn't it? I'm going to stick up for them for a minute. If the whole premise is to protect, never question, be discreet, sign the Official Secrets Act, all well and good for me and other people right now, and you quite rightly to go, come on, for the monarchy to survive, we need transparency. You are going to have to bleat. It will go against almost everything they've ever been told to believe in, or the rules by which they've told. But for, as you said, for every correct I mean, you just said it. There were cameras in every room in the New York mansion. Any good close protection officer would have gone, well, we can see that. What's all this about? So presumably, did they stay in a room upstairs? Well, there were girls being ferried from famous person to famous person. It's an astonishingly... What concerns me, Di, if you want me to be completely honest, is a bit like with Mandelson and the Labour Party, one can only surmise this must go so damn high. It's a bit like the rape gang inquiry that I keep going on and people get angry. That's an institutional cover-up. There has to be, whether it's the royal family or the Mandelson or the rape, there has to be more to this. But I just feel we're at a point now where the British public won't accept being just fobbed off. I think they'll demand far more than they've ever demanded, my friend.
Well, you're right. At the weekend, I used the word a conspiracy of silence. Now I'm alleging a conspiracy of perverting the course of justice, because it's alleged, if you believe what Andrew Lownie tells us, and you, and I'm a friend of his, and I've worked with him for years on a variety of different things.
But he hasn't been wrong in anything he said. He was ridiculed
Well, you're
and laughed
right.
at.
And he obviously, because he wrote the book and is far more authoritative than I'll ever be. But the point is, we've known about this since 2011. Let's go back to the sex trafficking. They had a crisis meeting, allegedly, led by a deputy press officer called Perkins, and they knew perfectly well back in 2011 that picture. Yes, he may have denied it to the Queen, but they certainly knew in the palace, and they monitor everything that goes on. And so for 14, 15 years, there has been a conspiracy of silence, and there's been a conspiracy by many at various levels not to tell the truth, I allege.
It's absolutely, I mean, it sounds a terrible thing to say. It's fascinatingly worrying. Do you think, and just to ask you, as I asked Andrew Lownie this morning, if this goes as high as you and I would imagine, do you think that the King and William might end up being questioned by the police?
Well, I think they have to be, don't they? If they were party to any kind of issue, which Andrew has stated, and I'm thinking as an investigator, I say, and I've said it on numerous programmes, don't take us for fools. Don't take the Michael that we will buy some of this nonsense that's been emanating for years, and the cover-up. Who decided? Didn't they have a meeting, crisis meeting, to pay the 12 million? Didn't anybody talk about it? Didn't they say, oh, we're going to strip him? But you don't strip a man who, frankly, okay, he has an association, but it had to go much deeper than that. You wouldn't take every title, everything the man has had all his life, unless you were pretty convinced he was guilty.
Yeah.
It just beggars belief, the nonsense that comes out of so-called experts. And I get really angry when they keep saying he denies all knowledge. Well, of course he'd deny all knowledge. But if you actually look at his track record, if you look at the evidence coming out, it's quite clear that this man had a thing about sex, in addition to feathering his and his ex-wife. And we haven't talked much about her, but she needs to be interviewed and frankly arrested as well.
That I completely agree with. Final question. It's brilliant to have you on, Di. I asked this of Andrew, asked it of Kinsey. Does the British monarchy survive this, or does the increased numbers of people calling for its abolishment grow?
I think, provided they're open and transparent, and we...
Oh, Andrew, Di, we've lost you. The sound just went completely bark. Come back, speak again. Is it all right? Yeah, we're right. I'm going to ask you the question again. Sorry, Di, there was a technical problem there. Does the monarchy survive this scandal, or will the calls for it to be abolished increase?
Well, I hope it survives, because if it's done properly, if it's transparent, and they show value for money, but we have to have that. And that's the crux to me. Be honest, tell the truth, and be susceptible, but also we have to justify, and you have to prove that you are worth the money, the huge amounts that we pay. And there's a lot of nonsense. This costs 60 pence. Royalty protection costs millions and millions. And Andrew has asked numerous times, how much do we actually spend? Well, I'm not going to tell you here today, but I know what my estimates are. Let me give you an estimate about Andrew and his family, about 200 million in today's money.
You said, and you'll love this, I was reading it at 2:15 this morning in the car up from the coast, the Epstein cover-up is on the way. Starmer's actions damn him irretrievably. The truth is, we heard yesterday, he's refusing to release all the files relating to both Andrew. There's the Mandelson saga of him saying, I shouldn't have been arrested. I'm going to... Whoever's put that out there. Because I think, Dan, don't know about you, Mandelson's going to squeal like a pig.
Well, to be perfectly honest, I hope Peter Mandelson does squeal like a pig because we want to get to the bottom of what, as I say today in the piece, is quite clearly one of the most damning and widespread political scandals, certainly of my lifetime. But you know, you say that Keir Starmer's refusing to release all the files. At the moment, Keir Starmer's refusing to release any of the files. I mean, this is the key point. It's been almost a month now since Keir Starmer was dragged kicking and screaming by the House of Commons into agreeing to release all the documents relating to Peter Mandelson's time as ambassador. Now, obviously, we've got a criminal investigation underway, and at the start of this week, Peter Mandelson was finally arrested. But throughout that period, nothing has been released. No documents, not a single email, not a single report, nothing. And the idea that all of this information could somehow prejudice the trial is clearly for the birds. And you know, there are some very, very disturbing elements of this starting to emerge. I mean, one of the key things that I cite today, and I don't think there's been sufficient focus on this, is when Keir Starmer initially said documents would be released, he gave a guarantee to the House of Commons that process would be overseen by Chris Wormold, the then Cabinet Secretary, who Starmer's allies made a huge point in the House of Commons of saying his integrity was absolutely unimpeachable. He was the perfect person to oversee this process. A week later, Wormold was sacked.
Yeah.
You know, there's not been enough focus on
what
this.
I read in your article this morning, and I agree with that wholeheartedly, I've always had this argument about the Met Police, right? Don't mark your own homework. The reason the Labour Party backbenchers stood up and shouted quite rightly was a lot of you in government might be up to your neck in it, Wes Streeting. I don't know, and I'm not going to make assumptions. But you can't decide what's going to be released. It needs to be a blanket release, and you're absolutely right. Because front page of the Mirror this morning, Dan, you'll have seen it. Oh, Gordon Brown, Jean-Michel Brown, we must stop reform. I'm going to phone the police and tell them to look into all these things to do with Mandelson. You bloody well employed him, Gordon Brown. Many people who have watched this unfold are saying that this will be Starmer's Watergate. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what I've written today. If you look, I mean, it may sound like hyperbole, but if you look at the parallels, so we've got this situation where, as I say, we are talking about high crimes and misdemeanors, indeed potentially worse crimes than were the focus of the Great Watergate scandal. We've got documents being suppressed. We've got officials summarily being dismissed. We've had, I mean, obviously Wormold was sacked and was placed with Antonio Romeo. We had this incredible report that Romeo herself has been the subject of bullying allegations, and that members of the Civil Service Propriety and Ethics team broke into a safe to access a report into that bullying. This is back in 2022, broke into a safe, and the report into the bullying has been destroyed.
Yeah.
Now, if you were writing a film script about this, people would reject it on the grounds it was too incredible. But this is what is now happening in front of our eyes. And as I said, in terms of the release of the documents, we were told a month ago the process of releasing the documents would begin immediately. Then we were told, well, they would be available as soon as the House of Commons returned from recess. Now we're being told some of them might be released sometime next month, but others, as has been reported, may not be released for years.
Yeah.
Now, that is a completely untenable situation.
I'm going to ask you a question. You might not agree. I can't get this out of my head. If loads of people are implicated, there's one person's name that keeps coming up whenever I wake up. All roads lead to Tony Blair, don't they, Dan?
Well, I mean, I'm not into, and I bow to no one in certainly in terms of my criticism of Blair in terms of his later years. I think this is part of the problem. I think the point is there are so. I mean, you were obviously touching on Gordon Brown. You've obviously raised Tony Blair
because he got very vocal, Brown, didn't he? You've got to investigate Mandelson, but I'm not buying the fact that he did not. He brought him back, gave him a peerage, made him first Secretary of State. This man could be mired as much as the next man. I don't know.
Obviously, and you know there are issues relating to obviously Prince Andrew's appointment as a trade
envoy. Yeah,
and you're right. You know, this does spread far and wide. But the key to it is, if we want to get to the bottom of all of this, we have to have access to the evidence.
Yeah.
And there is one person at the moment who has responsibility for releasing the evidence and is refusing to release the evidence, and that's Keir Starmer. And I think that's the point. You know, people need to keep, you know, very tightly focused on the issue. The House of Commons forced Keir Starmer to release the documents. We have still to see a single document. We have a continuing process of tomorrow, next week, next month, they'll be released. Some of them will be released. You know, I'm going to be completely honest. I'm not sure we will get to see the documents that we need to see.
Maybe we'll only see it, as somebody said this morning, when Keir Starmer's thrown out of office.
Yeah, at which point, potentially, in a couple of years' time, although obviously Keir Starmer may well be thrown out of office in a couple of months. But the point is, what I suspect will then happen is any successor will come in and say, look, come on, do we really need to, this is old news, Keir Starmer's gone, this happened on someone else's watch, do we really need to rake through all this? All these issues. Let's just move on.
There's so much in that article. I would recommend people read it today in the Mail. It's an excellent piece by Dan. I just want to ask you about a couple of other things, because your paper this morning, and I've been saluting it all day. Sarah Vine writes, the biggest creep in British politics, Zach Polanski. The front of your paper says, beware the Green Menace. This documentation that the Mail has managed to attain, which says that the Green Party, if elected, would plan to hand illegal migrants, each and every one of them, because we'll have open borders, free houses, free wages without a job, and NHS care. They also want to legalise hard drugs. I don't want to talk specifically about by-elections. I'm basing this on the national statistic yesterday that showed the Green Party in second place. Frightening times, isn't it, Dan?
Well, it is frightening. I mean, when you've got a party with these policies in second place in the opinion polls, it's obviously very alarming. But the issue is, I don't actually think there are significant numbers of the British public, even people, frankly, on the left of politics, who support this raft of policies. But what you're seeing now, and this is a fundamental point that we will see, I think, arising out of the by-election, is we're currently seeing a situation where the Labour Party's vote is collapsing, if you like, on two flanks. So, you know, traditional working class Labour voters are abandoning Labour for reform on, if you like, the right flank, and sort of more liberal middle class, maybe younger voters on the left of the party who traditionally voted Labour are now abandoning Labour for the Greens, not because they're particularly convinced by what the Greens are saying, or Zach Polanski and his, you know, his psychic breast enlargement.
Do you not know what I call him, Dan? I call him hypno tits. I make no secret for it.
I'm sure it'll catch on. Not because they're basically sort of being convinced by it, but they, like everybody else, people on the left, are as disillusioned with Labour and Keir Starmer as everybody else. And that is the fundamental problem. It is Keir Starmer that is opening the door to the Greens, rather than, I think, the Greens convincing people with the wisdom of their political agenda.
The day that Andrew lost his job as the UK trade envoy, where he'd allegedly be brokering deals with lots of friends of passing information on, which is why he was arrested the other day, Epstein blamed Charles for it.
The mean older brother, yes. When Andrew lost his UK trade envoy role in July of 2011, Epstein sends a couple of emails. In one message, he wrote, that he assumed this is Charles's doing. And in another, he suggested Andrew would now be free. We've heard that language before, haven't we? Harry and Meghan, finding freedom. He'd be free. There was even an exchange with Ghislaine Maxwell, where after being sent coverage from Epstein, Ghislaine says, why? And Epstein replies, I think he wants to make money.
Oh, what, smelly Ghislaine? Still not washing in the Florida penitentiary. I wanted to ask something yesterday and I forgot. You know these thousands of emails, how did they come upon them? Was it just trawling through his computers? He'd saved everything. How did it come to be that the Epstein files existed in the first place?
This is evidence that they started to archive when they were going to prosecute him before he allegedly killed himself.
Allegedly killed himself? What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, there are question marks surrounding his death.
Well, I'll stick my neck on the line and everybody thinks I'm barking mad. I don't believe that a man, however successful, gets that much influence and that much money unless he's financed by somebody else. Right. How is that war going in Ukraine, Vladimir Putin? That's just my opinion. It's an outspoken one, but there we go. Can we talk about Epstein? Because two things yesterday were brought to my attention that I left a little bit of sick in my mouth. Bill Gates admitted affairs with Russians, but denies illicit behaviour. So he was married and he was popping off on the Lolita Express to have sex with a lot of Russian models and porn stars. Is that right?
Well, and it's just, it sends you back to that Andrew BBC interview where he's like, it's not this, it's that. It's like trying to deflect. So we have a collection of emails from Jeffrey Epstein where he's offering up Russian women, specifically Russian women, to other high-profile individuals. But you're just willing to say, yes, my mistresses were Russian, but they weren't Epstein Russian. I mean, it's just, it's trying. I'm not buying it either because I'm just thinking to myself, it looks too much like Andrew trying to talk his way out of trouble. It's just a little bit of this, but not completely that.
The whole thing is just, and then yesterday, and I can bring Poppy in on this, a photograph was sent to my phone by Christian, and I thought it was a joke, but it's not a joke at all. Stephen Hawking, who is an incredible human being, is pictured in a pair of jeans and a jumper with two really, really young-looking, half-naked models holding a cocktail for him to sip on. Their faces have been blacked out. I don't know what to say, both of you. Could somebody... his family have said, right, this is my best bit, Kins, right? They were his carers.
Oh, my God.
His family have said, those two bikini-clad women on Epstein's Island where Russian prostitutes run amok were simply his carers.
I have never seen such hot caregivers. I can confidently say
Sorry,
that.
hot caregivers, did you just say?
We might need to hold a contest so we can find some, but I will also say I've never been in a bikini in front of my employer, and I don't plan to be. I'm getting older, things are going south, so it's probably never going to happen. But I just don't see the appropriateness of throwing on a two-piece in front of the guy that, you know, is paying my rent.
Poppy, I'm with you, Kins. Poppy, Stephen Hawking is a national treasure. He's lying there on his sunbed and he's got two bikini-clad young women holding a cocktail. They are allegedly his carers. Any response?
All I was going to say is I haven't had that many interactions with the NHS, but I have a feeling that those are not exactly the sort of carers you'd expect in a hospital. Also, the caption on that photo that one of the newspapers gave it was, Stephen Hawking, pictured here, grinning from ear to ear. Well, you would, wouldn't you, if you were in that situation?
Can you two just give me a minute? Hello. Is that the care home? I'm coming in later after the show. I need a couple of
I need a blonde, I need a brunette.
Well, I was gonna, and yeah, I mean, honestly, mate, the whole thing, and you think you can't get any worse. Stephen Hawking being straddled by two cocktail-holding, careful, young things. I hope your mother...
Well,
I'm the hot one, though. I'm the hot one. Your mother thinks I'm hot. This is unbelievable.
Never forget it. Never forget it. It just goes to show you the reach that Epstein had, the unbelievable access he had to truly significant characters.
Completely.
Andrew aside, we won't even acknowledge him, but he just had access to unbelievable people, and it's scary.
Imagine being on Epstein's island as Prince Andrew and you come out of some massage room where some young Russian woman has given you a rub down and there's Hawking being dealt with by two people. There's Gates in the corner. I mean, it's so vile. It's so wrong. And honestly, we've only got a little bit of time left. Can we please move on? In all of this, I read an amazing article by Amanda Patel this morning in the Daily Mail who said, let's not forget, whilst all of this is going on and Uncle Andrew is in disgrace, inside the ginger one and the odious one, Harry and Meghan, from nowhere, have landed in Jordan, is it, I think, and are doing a 2-day humanitarian tour. Honest to God, she must be rubbing her hands with glee, Meghan. You know, I look good now.
Does she? Well, that's my issue, JK. Like, my concern is that we will see an increase this year in these types of trips because the Sussexes are determined to play the moral superiority card. They want to say, I told you so. They want us to go back and go, oh, maybe they were being honest in the Oprah Winfrey interview, because look at all these negative headlines surrounding the British royal family. And you are my witness, Jeremy Kyle. I have sat here and defended King Charles to the point of embarrassment.
Yep.
If this man does not grow a pair and take away these titles from these ridiculous clowns, I will have to reconsider where my priorities are.
I completely agree. This is nothing more. By the way, did you know that Jordan is one of the favourite hunting grounds of William and Kate? This is an absolute publicity stunt by that odious pair. He looks as miserable as sin. She will have been rubbing her hands together and phoning the latest in a line of 10 PR agents that have gone in the time since they left the royal family. This is all about her again. I wish somebody would have the courage to say to her, and I'm so with you, no title, nobody's interest, stick to jam, you odious cretin, and let us get on with our lives. You're right. King Charles, right, who might end up being interviewed by the police, according to Di Davis, and William for that sake, needs to do the right thing. He could start getting people back on side by taking titles away from those two grifters. Hate them, sorry, don't like him. People go, are you really unfair to her? No, I'm not. Horrible.
No, I think it's called holding someone accountable.
Yeah.
And we see these visuals where she's trying to copy Diana. She's trying to copy Catherine. You quit your job because you didn't have the backbone, you didn't have the discipline, and you didn't have what it takes to make it as a royal.
No class.
Yeah,
no class.
That too.
I've said before, I used to go to America on a boys' golf trip, and there she is. We watched repeats of Deal or No Deal, and she's box 23 in a boob tube. Terrible. Have you seen this?
I've got so many things to say about this. Shall I just do it in a list?
Do whatever you want.
Okay.
I'm delighted to have you here.
Number one, the only people who need refuge are women, particularly from Afghanistan, Syria. You know, they're the ones who are being properly oppressed here, and they're the ones who need us to help them, not a load of working age young bucks who are obviously crawled over the bodies of women and children to get on those boats. I mean, it really enrages me because, you know, there's a crisis going on for women around the world in countries where the Taliban and far-right Islamists have taken over, and we should be helping them, not these people. Number two, I'm not allowed to mention there's a by-election, but I can't say it. But I can talk about Zach Polansky. Can I talk about Zach Polansky?
On a national level?
Yes. So Zach Polansky, who is the leader of the Green Party, who is polling really high, especially with young people, his policy on migrants is to let everyone come, to immediately give them housing, full benefits, not require them to work, but give them a living wage. He has basically said, anyone can come, we will treat you as though you are effectively a citizen in waiting. So, you know, and Zach Polansky is fascinating because he polls really well with young women, and this I don't understand. But he is a sort of kind of, he presents himself as this sort of, you know, nice guy, but actually he's a hard left I mean, much worse than Labour. So, you know, there's a whole big picture thing here going on. But I agree. I mean, Labour haven't managed to stop the boats. It's very difficult to stop the boats. But the people who are coming should just be ashamed of themselves.
I agree. I'm going to give you something from Poppy Coburn. It was on this morning doing the papers from the Daily Telegraph. I mean, this completely blew us all out the water, excuse the pun. Under human rights law, this is ludicrous but true. Whatever you're doing, pin back your luggles. Under human rights law advocated by Starmer and his bunch of cronies, it would be better if we were landlocked, because if we were landlocked in this country, we could build a wall or a fence, think Trump, because we would have that right. As an island, Sarah Vine, surrounded by water, we have a human rights legal right, or whatever, not right, responsibility for people who come here illegally to pick them up, because if we don't and they drown, that'll be on us.
I know.
I find it's beyond me. What, the RNLI's become a bloody taxi service?
It has, and that is the madness of the EHCR. You know, it's just insane. But it's you know, I don't know who. I mean, I just think someone who climbs over children and women to get here is not someone I really want here. Do you know what I mean?
No, but I completely agree. But for me, it's not difficult. I have watched swathes of politicians tell me about human rights and about logistics. The truth is, right, if you make it so brilliantly opportunist to come here, if you wipe the backsides of people who have paid nothing, you are going to encourage streams to get in whichever way. If you cut that off and you say that morally, whatever your politics, thank you so much to the married couple in Birmingham who both work jobs. One deals with the kids in the afternoon, the other in the evening. You're struggling to pay your bills, but you've never broken the law. Thank you so much. We're going to double your taxes, because what we're going to do is we're going to let people in willy-nilly who have never paid, who have no respect for our country, our traditions and our language, and we're actually going to treat them better than you.
Well,
That's
and also,
not fair.
It's not just a lack of respect. It's worse than that. They actively seem to despise us.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of them, you know, it's unfortunately it is fact. If you look at the figures and if you look at the sort of the amount of assaults that we see perpetrated by migrants, it's not the case that they are coming here and going, thank you very much. I've come here because I've tried to get away from something awful and I want to live in your country because I think it's a civilized place. That is not what is happening. No. If that was what was happening, it would be okay. But it's not. There's a total that we are importing a culture that, and I'm sorry to bang this drum again, that hates women. Yep. That doesn't believe in our values, that doesn't think that everyone should be. I mean, it's not our culture, and we have to try and contain it. And that is not being racist. That's being realistic how much a country can cope with.
Absolutely.
In terms of...
To me, it can't be deemed racist. You're right. Look what we did with Ukraine, and I'm with you. We are always and always have been ready to protect those who are vulnerable. But the BS that is spouted about we're leaving war-torn countries, no, you're not. You're leaving, OK, you are leaving a tent on a French beach, and whether people like this or not, the truth is you are coming to a 4-star hotel. You'll see a GP and a dentist, get a mobile phone and a credit card. You'll probably get benefits. And you're a lady and you're a woman and you've just said it and so have I. You will probably, 1,000,000%, many of you, will go and attack somebody, and predominantly a woman, and that is fundamentally wrong.
So it's a safeguarding issue. Yep. We've seen what's happened with all of we've got case after case of people who have come on these boats doing terrible things. There was a 12-year-old girl who was literally dragged out of a playground by a guy the other day and raped while he filmed it on his telephone laughing. I mean, that this is just. I mean, I know that people from this country do things like that as well, but
that's not a reason to exacerbate it by having people come here who don't follow our rules.
And the thing is, if you make it a really lovely push, your previous caller was right. It's like a sort of all-inclusive super duper package.
Yeah.
You know, come here and you get all the stuff that you want that you can't get anywhere else. To be perfectly honest, if you're an illegal migrant who's come from a country, possibly because you're a criminal there already, and you come here and you do something terrible and you end up in a British jail, you're probably better off in a British jail than you would be where you've come from, because you get you get all the sort of, you get 3 hot meals a day.
Yeah.
You get people respecting your religion. You get people, some nice person coming to talk to you about your mental health.
Don't start me on that. They'll say, this is the latest thing they say, I'm Christian, or I'm gay, or I don't like... when I say this story to people, they think I'm making up. I can't go back because my son doesn't like the chicken nuggets in Albania.
That was a good one.
The whole thing.
But this is the problem with the ECHR. It's open to abuse. It's a bad law. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have, be mindful of human rights, but this is a bad piece of legislation that allows people to abuse it, and that's the problem with it. And that's why, Kemi Badenoch is right. We should come out of it. Farage is right. We should not be part of this. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
But I just want to talk to you very quickly about... I played the clip at the beginning of the hour. Up jumped a very energetic Keir Starmer yesterday. He looked like somebody had stuff to pluck somewhere, but he was going, oh, here we go. Here we go. Energy bills. Great news, Mr. Speaker. £117 down. And then X went, you're a liar.
I saw
They're
that.
73 quid more expensive, you
I saw
blatant
that.
liar.
I saw that. I mean, I hope whichever the special advisor who made that mistake is having his feet roasted gently over a fire this morning.
But you know what you've just said, right? You think McSweeney, you think, Chris Womold, what are the other one that went, the other Tim guy? The fact is, he has surrounded himself and continues to surround himself with the most incompetent people I've never come across or thought about. Did you see the debacle over the Chagos Islands yesterday? I was working yesterday afternoon. It came through on PA. Government minister says Chagos Island deal paused because of Trump. Number 10 says, no, it's not. And then about an hour later, Number 10 said, oh, no, it is.
But he's not in control. And he's a dead man walking. This is the problem. He's not in control. They're keeping him there because he's useful. He catches the bullets now. I mean, that's literally the situation that he finds himself in. He's had so many U-turns. Well, I think it's a 15 or 16, depending on whose tally you accept. And the point is that he's talking about now potentially doing a U-turn on student fees. Every single thing that he's changed his mind on practically has been pushed by the opposition, by Kemi Badenoch, who has forced him into doing it. So it's fascinating watching it, because actually she's mounting a very aggressive, very effective opposition to his policies that she disagrees with, and he is capitulating because he doesn't have the confidence and he doesn't have the backing of his ministers. And this is a problem. Sorry, my cat is here.
We love the cat. I'm going to play that clip for people just tuning in, because fair's fair. You make a really good point. Kemi Badenoch was on fire yesterday afternoon.
Everything
really?
he's done. She is making the running.
But you know what I'd say, Sarah? We're mates, right? I think, sadly, she's William Hague. I think she's the right person at the wrong time for the Tory party.
It doesn't matter, because the point is she's making him U-turn on bad policies, and that's good. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, nothing matters. Individuals don't matter in this scenario. What matters is the country and it not going to the dogs thanks to an incompetent government.
Let's play that. Can I play that clip? But can I play the Kemi clip? Because she absolutely roasted him again. Have a listen to this.
The Prime Minister has the cheek to talk about my party being smaller. His party is smaller too, including one MP who was arrested for child sex offences. So perhaps before he gets on his high horse, he should ask why his backbenchers are saying that they're being called the Pedo Defenders Party. I know they don't like it, Mr. Speaker, but I haven't said anything that's not true, have I?
She's definitely stepped up her game, hasn't she, Sarah?
No, I mean she's feisty, and but the whole point is that British politics in general has descended into a sort of popularity contest between personalities. But what really matters is how the country is run and whether the policies are right and whether we're doing the right thing. And I would say that even if Kemi doesn't make it to be Prime Minister, she's done so much good work already that, her contribution to politics is important. You don't have to be Prime Minister to actually make a difference. And I think a lot of politicians kind of forget that. It doesn't. You don't have to hold the reins of power. There are other ways. And what she's doing is forensically tearing apart his policies, which are faulty and bad, and actually just chasing him down the road with it. And that, I think, that is very, that for me, that is, that's really exciting, proper politics.
No, I absolutely agree. Just talking about the Chagos deal, which now is apparently paused because Trump doesn't like it, and a bit more information, which you'll be ahead of me, but apparently under the deal, this is what's enraged Trump is. I mean, this is how ludicrous Starmer is. We would have to let Mauritians know if we were going to use Diego Garcia in a military way, right? Well, Mauritians are in bed with the Chinese, and that Trump's gone, so if I want to launch a raid on Iran, right, you honestly, I've got to tell the Mauritians, who tell the Chinese, who tell the Iraqis, that Iranians. That's how stupid Starmer is. But I don't know if you've heard this one. This morning, Shadow Foreign Secretary Priti Patel has claimed overnight that a draft treaty has already been agreed for Labour to hand the Rock of Gibraltar over to Spain. That's the latest one. Have you heard this?
I mean, the thing about the Rock of Gibraltar is that it's an iconic. It's iconic because it harks back to the days when Britain was a great maritime, empire.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, it's actually. I don't know if I've actually been to Gibraltar quite a lot. I mean,
So have I.
It's not. I wouldn't say it was. I wouldn't weep too many tears. But I have to say, it is. It's symbolic. It's and that I think that's one of the things that Starmer just doesn't understand. He doesn't get that people care about their country, their country's history, its place in history, and whether or not you like Gibraltar, whether or not you ever go there, whether or not it's any point. There's probably no point in us having it now anyway, because we don't have the empire that we used to have. But it is a symbol, isn't it?
And also, and I think nobody. This is what I hate about this government. To me, it's apologist, right? There are certain things in the past of almost every country, okay, that they would feel they had to apologise for. But I feel that this country is run by a man and a cabinet that don't like Britain, don't like what it's done, what it stands for. I love the fact the cat walks past. It's brilliant, right?
So excited.
No, it's great. And that he will do... But then you become cynical and you think to yourself, so are you doing this? Are you giving away Gibraltar? Are you giving away... Because you feel this will make you look good? Or is it you and your human rights mates ensuring that you'll be trousering money for the rest of your time when being PM is over? I don't know.
Well, I mean, who knows? Who knows? Because there's no material... There's no reason... I mean, Starmer will not gain anything from giving away Gibraltar.
No.
It will not do him any favours with anyone, to be perfectly honest. Not the people who voted for him, not his own party, and Kemi will eviscerate him for it, no doubt. So it's just he's just on a hiding to nothing. And I just get the sense with him that you're dealing with someone who is very, very. He's very. His value has plummeted. He is a dead man walking. I am afraid.
He has managed in 18 months to be as unpopular as Boris at the end, Truss, Sunak. He is worse. What it is I think repeatedly is I don't understand, which sounds terrible, how anybody so lacking in political antennae, DNA, judgment, anything, has got to the highest job in the land. It frightens me.
Well, I mean, it's a sort of it's a reflection of the quality of politics these days. There are very few people who are actually in it for the right reasons, I'm afraid.